All right, guys. Well, the video does not seem to be working. Brother Mitchell Reese, Rhonda, good to see you guys. We are continuing to try to do some things with the video beforehand, but it looks like maybe it's not working. So we are trying a few little bit different technologies this time. We're going to take a few minutes here and just give it a few minutes for everybody to come in. We are starting a few minutes early. I was hoping that video would loop and play for a few minutes, but it doesn't look like it's going to. Take a few more notes. I was going to write down a few more notes as it was playing there, but again, we are trying some new technologies this time. We should be going live this time on Facebook and on YouTube. So I'm going to try to pull that up and see how this looks if it's on both. It should be live on our Facebook group page, and it appears as if it is. We've got some folks watching there, 3 folks. So all the folks on the Facebook side, let's turn it down. It's good to see you guys. I don't see the comments from Facebook, so it looks like when it says comments, it has all. And guys, I apologize, but we're still learning here, trying to figure out how this works. Yes, indeed, it does look like it has all destinations. It's showing them all, but I'm not sure if it's pulling the Facebook ones. Delynn, I know Delynn will be joining in here in a few minutes, I do believe. And I'll try to maybe sit here and watch and follow along a little bit on Facebook. So guys, if you're on Facebook, if you all could give me a thumbs up or a chat one. Chris Carter, I see you're online there watching, so please let me know if you guys on Facebook can also hear me. We're trying streaming on a couple different channels here, trying a couple different options. So we're going to see if this works tonight. Hopefully it does. Bear with me again. Again, we're going on a little bit live, a little bit fast here because the video I was wanting to show was not cooperating, so that's okay. We're still working on trying to come up with a better preview video. We like a little bit of inspirational music beforehand. And I know we've been working several times with Crazy Cats, and she had told us some different options and ways of trying to get around some of this copyright stuff. So we're still trying to learn the YouTube world, guys. We were even looking at some other options for different streaming tools. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to be going. So Travis Taylor's on Facebook also watching. You're going to see me look down occasionally, guys. I guess I've got a little window here also for Facebook, trying to watch it as well. So welcome back, guys. Scott County VA gun owners. My name is Jeff Arrington. We are coming to you live again from Scott County, Virginia, in the community of Hiltons, Virginia. It has been several days since we've made a video. We've had a lot going on. It's been a busy day, been a busy couple of days. We had flooding recently, so flood levels got up to about 16.5 feet high. We did a real quick video the other day. Some of y'all may have caught the video on YouTube. It's not on Facebook, but it was on YouTube of going down the river in the kayak. Tried doing something a little bit different there, but certainly hollered out and asked for prayers from everybody there. Again, the water has fallen back down. We've had a little bit more rain the last couple of days, so it's came back up a couple of feet. But at the moment, it's still within the banks, and by all estimates, it's supposed to be staying in there. So, John Lovin, greetings from North Carolina. Glad to have you on, brother. I'm seeing on Facebook, we got 5 folks in there. So, folks on Facebook, I hope you can hear me, Chris or Travis, anybody on Facebook. I'm watching the live stream on Facebook. Well, again, tonight we're trying an option where it streams to multiple channels simultaneously. So, we're on Facebook as well as on YouTube. I see Facebook user howdy. We got some folks coming in here. That was Delynn. Delyn's watching on Facebook. Awesome. Loud and clear. Glad to hear that. I appreciate that, Delynn. Thank you. Very good. That's good to have that feedback. So Mulehead's online, I see. That's awesome, guys. So thank you on the Facebook side, Chris. Thank you very much. I'm glad to see you can hear me just fine. Wanted to talk about several different things today. I'm going to do something a little bit different here, I guess. We do have Jason in the house. So, Jason, you ready?
Yeah.
We have so as you guys can see, we've got our very own Wilson. There is Jason. So we have Jason on camera this time. Jason, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Things are going great.
So what are we going to talk about a little bit tonight, Jay?
We're going to talk a little bit about this bill that's passed in the House, this HB961. I think we're going to get into a little bit of that, and possibly just try to answer some questions. People leave your questions and comments in the comment section, and we'll try and get to those as well.
Excellently. So if you are familiar with, Jason, we've said it before, he's our own in-house Wilson. If you're not familiar with Wilson, go back and watch a little bit of the videos from Tool Time. Tim the Toolman Taylor, he had a great neighbor named Wilson. So Jason is our very own Wilson. So, no, that's not a mistake, guys. We're having a little fun with it. Try to do something a little bit interesting and just a little bit fun. So, occasionally we'll refer to Brother Jason to give us some wisdom and advice, just as Tim did in the movies in his TV show. So we're now in about 4 minutes into this. I saw some more folks. Dexter Harmon, hello. I saw somebody from Facebook said they loved that. That was DeLynn. Preacher, just on top of head. I think we saw somebody. Let's see, who was that a second ago? I saw. Let's see here if I can figure out how to scroll up and down these comments. Aaron Duncan, I believe it was. I believe that's who it was. Aaron came in and said that he was still at work. I see Kim's on here. Hello, sister. It's good to see you. Can't stay long. Aaron's at work. It's all right, brother. We'll be praying for you. Hello for prayers from Kentucky. Listen, guys, prayers are something we can always use. We're going to be talking about that tonight. Part of our strategy. Home improvement. That's it. That's exactly right. Who was that? That was Brother Travis Taylor. Good to see you, Travis. Man, tell you what, every time so those of you who don't know Travis Taylor, he's a great, great friend. He's on Facebook. Every time his profile picture, I believe, Travis, that's still one of your trips out west where you went out elk hunting. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of envious about that. But it is a great, great TV show. Home improvement. Still watch the reruns always. We are 5 minutes into it. I think we've got enough folks on. We've got 27 folks. It looks like on maybe YouTube and then 10 on Facebook. So let's just go ahead and jump into this. Y'all came here for some information, so let's give you some information. Again, a lot has happened over the last couple of days, and I've not done a very, very good job of getting a chance to get on here doing a video. Again, we've been dealing with the flooding issues, but wanted to give you a quick couple of important updates. Hopefully you guys have seen some of the other resources that we have referred you to. Chad Owens on Facebook. Great to see you there too. Aaron Tate's good to see you too as well, brother. A couple of updates from Virginia that are important for today. Again, if you've been following the last couple of days, today was a very, very important day for one of the most devastating bills that the Democrats have put forward so far, which was the House Bill 961. That was the replacement for Senate Bill 16, which was their so-called assault weapons ban. And again, I always point to it, but you see this up here on the wall, that up there hanging on those deer horns. You know, you feed a bullet in from the very end. It's at the very end with the ramrod. That's how you load the bullet. That was the original assault rifle. But however, HB 961 is their so-called assault weapons ban. Today was the big vote in the House. It did pass subcommittee. Some of you may have seen the video from that. I believe it was on Friday. And in that subcommittee, when it passed, if you saw that, they instantaneously, the police were brought in and they asked everyone to be removed from the chambers because there was, understandably so, quite a bit of emotion floating around the room and folks that were a little bit upset about that. So they instantly cleared out the room as it passed that subcommittee, and it did come up today for a pass. Now, I want to again highlight that whole point about the fact that it passed in the subcommittee and there was a little bit of tension there with the Virginia State Police. Some folks were saying, well, we see where the police stand. Well, they're on their side. Guys, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, this channel is a full support for our brothers and sisters in blue, okay? Are there bad cops? There are. Are there bad preachers? There are. Are there bad whatever? I don't care what profession you want to group together. There are bad apples in every single one of them, okay? But by and far and large, we are supporters of our brothers and sisters in blue. Those Virginia State Police are there doing their job. They're not doing something disruptive. Guys, that passing in a subcommittee did not make felons, as some of the folks in the crowd said. They said it made felons out of everybody here. No, it's not quite to that point. And I'm not criticizing those people that are saying that because I understand their passion. To be completely honest with you, I still personally sometimes struggle wanting to say, get a little bit more frustrated than maybe I should, okay? But I think about the fact that the Bible talks about, blessed are those who are slow to anger and slow to wrath. So I'm not saying I'm blessed, but I am very blessed. But I'm not saying that I'm special and trying to do that. But I try to remind myself that these are not laws yet. Okay, they passed a subcommittee today. The news for today is, of course, they did. For anybody that's following, they did pass the House level. So they passed by a vote of, I believe it was 51. And I'm just going to flip over here for a second and see. It was 51 to 48. So it has passed the House. Today was the last day for it to pass the House. Tomorrow it will move to the Senate for the Senate to have to review and pass that. And it can go into a subcommittee in the Senate. It can get killed in a subcommittee in the Senate as well, guys, okay? Again, the way this process works is it has to pass both the House and the Senate and then go to the governor to be signed before it's legislation, before it's law. Even if it does get signed, it doesn't become law as soon as he signs it, okay? July 1st or January 1st of 2021 is going to be those time periods, as I understand it, when some of these bills, if they do get passed by all three branches, essentially, of the Virginia Commonwealth government, that they wouldn't become law until those dates, either July 1st or January 1st, 2021. So there's still time. If it passes by the governor, let's say the governor passes these and he signs them, guys, it's not like all of a sudden it's over and there's nothing else we can do. That's not the case at all. There are going to be a lot of lawyers that are going to be standing by waiting to see what occurs. They can't do anything yet because, quite frankly, passing them in just the House, I could certainly argue the line that is tyranny, and I get the passion, I get that point, but we can't lose focus. We can't give the other side what they want. They would love nothing more than whenever one of these pass before their law for somebody to go up there and act a fool, okay, as the old term says, go up there and act a fool and do something silly that causes justification to what they're trying to push through, okay? Let's see here. We see express minds. Call them what you want. If they see them, they will bag and tag you. So remain polite if you will, but don't ignore the facts. Free men will be threatened with death if they do not comply. Yes, express minds. And express minds, please stay around. We're going to cover that in a few minutes, right? That's exactly what the other side wants, okay? And there's a lot of folks, guys, and we're going to go into this a little bit later. So again, with these passing, but there's a lot of folks that are questioning, why we're still talking. Why are we still sitting back peacefully thinking about this? And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So express minds, please stay around. We'd love to hear your input here in a little bit because you're exactly right. And what he's saying, guys, for those of you who can't see the comment, he says that, don't ignore the facts. Free men will be threatened with death if they do not comply. It may come to that, okay? Guys, if history repeats itself, America is eventually going to end. That's, unless the end of times and Christ comes back before that period. But that's not going to be possible either because the Bible even says there'll be a one world government, as it talks about in Revelation. So, I'm not saying that that's what it is. They do want us to comply, express minds. You're exactly right. I see Brother Justin's in the house. Well said. Thank you, sir. And there's some folks talking back and forth. So, but we're going to talk a little bit more about strategy. I want to stay a little bit more on HB 961. Again, it did pass 51 to 48. Now, for those of you who are aware, I believe the numbers here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's 45 Republicans in the House. So that means there's at least 3 Democrats that voted for that. And I say at least because I didn't pull up the numbers. There might have been some Republicans.
They voted against it.
Right, they voted against it. I said for it. Did I say for it?
Mm-hmm.
They voted against it. I apologize. There's 45 Republicans. There were 48 votes against HB 961. So that means at least 3 Democrats voted against it. So our calls and our efforts are working. There were 3 Democrats that voted against it. We still lost, okay?
That's huge.
If we get 3 in the Senate, guys, the Senate is 21 to 19, okay? There's a lot less members in the Senate. If we get the Senate and we get 3 Democrats to vote against it, we can defeat it in the Senate, okay? I really almost feel like it might be part of the Democrats' strategy here to just, see how far they can push us, okay? And we have to be very, very careful about that. But at least 3 Democrats, and the reason I say at least is some of those Republicans, I don't know if any of them have abstained. They may have been absent. There are a number of reasons that someone may or may not have voted on the Republican side. But let's assume that all 45 Republicans voted against it. There were at least 3 Democrats that voted against it as well. So it was not a strictly partisan vote, which is good. I'm not aware that any Republicans voted for it. That's, I guess, another possibility. You could have had 4 Democrats vote against it, maybe 1 Republican vote for it, but I certainly hope that's not the case. I will remind you, though, guys, our group we primarily, guys, line up with the Republicans, and doesn't take rocket scientists to figure that out, okay? The Republican Party right now is primarily a pro-Second Amendment group. The Democrat is primarily an anti-Second Amendment group. Point blank, point in mind, there's no way of disputing that fact. So we do typically align more with the Republican Party when I say that. So, but that being said, even on the Republican side, guys, the thing I want to remind you is always keep pressure on all of your elected representatives to get out there and do what they committed to do whenever they were campaigning. Okay, we've got to get the vote in November. Mitchell Reese, I see your honor. You're exactly right. We've got to get the vote out there in November. That's our big chance at the federal level to take it back over. Okay, it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of this plays out. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Trump has already tweeted, as he does, and said that he supports the Second Amendment rights and he'll never let those be infringed. One could argue that the bump stock ban was an infringement on that, right? I mean, technically, the bump stock is not a firearm. Let's just be very honest about that. So even though I did not agree with the bump stock ban, the one thing I can say is a bump stock technically is not a firearm. The ATF defines a firearm. There's all I know is there's four components. I know it's something around the lines of a barrel and a trigger and a combustion chamber, et cetera, et cetera. But there are four components that are defined by the ATF to be a firearm. And the bump stock, I don't believe, has any of those. So, some people jump on Trump and say, well, he's anti-Second Amendment. Well, I don't know that I don't know about I can justify that. We're belaboring the point here. The main point is HB 961 passed the House. Okay, we could go on. We could talk a full hour about this. We may come back at a later date and time. There's still a lot of videos I've committed to you guys I want to do about some educational items, which I think is one of the most important things in our fight, in addition to getting out and voting. The voting, the way I look at this, guys, our voting, our lobbying, our reaching out to our elected representatives, that's kind of the start of the short-term battle, right? Or the start maybe of the long-term battle. We've got to get back control of the Republican Party, okay? As soon as we get that back, which we will get that back at the federal level in November, next year, hopefully we can get that back at the Virginia level, at least take away the control that the Democrats have. It might be the following year before we get back the total control. But as soon as we get back that control, our battle's still not over, okay, guys? When we get back to Republican control, we've got to make sure that we stay on our representatives to make sure that they undo everything that is unconstitutional that these Democrats are doing now, that they're trying to do. And I want to be clear, none of these things that have been put forth so far are laws. They can still be stopped, okay? How many constitutional rights are they voting to remove here? Yeah, so express media, again, you're saying they should not even be discussed in a lawful manner. I agree with you. Again, I would like to get back to a point in time where political correctness, I mean, I've told people before, guys, for our elected representative to have a little healthy fear of their constituents is a good thing. The days of riding them out on a rail, as they say, y'all have seen the movie Bro, Brother, Where Art Thou, for instance. They come in and they throw the guy on the log and they ride him out on their shoulders. That was kind of a public ridicule almost, right? It was a very disgraceful thing. I personally would like to see something like that, not necessarily in a violent way and where it, attacks them per se, but, they should have some healthy fear of their constituents removing them from office. And what I mean by that is if we can get rid of some of the political correctness that is now has seeped its way into our world, okay, we would be goodness. All right, guys. Okay, I think we're back now. It still says we're live. It still lets us connect. Jason, go back in and rejoin if you don't care from that link.
Okay. Yep, we're back.
Guys, sorry about that. You want to turn that volume down on that thing? Sorry about that, guys. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. The internet just dropped out. I apologize about that. Preacher, I see your comment there, Brother Reach. Yeah, we're back, guys. Sorry about that. Chris Carter, I see you're back on there. Facebook was down too. It should all be back now. Our router was still on. I just reset it. And actually, the way this is supposed to be working, even though it's streaming to multiple platforms, that's supposed to be happening on the server side. So maybe our local supporter or our local provider maybe had a little snafu. I don't know. We're going to keep it going here, though. Where was I at? Gosh, there was a lot of information there. Delaney, I was about to text you a message, but we're back. Okay. Get all connected here. Jason's back online. Give us just a minute here, guys. Sorry about that. Apologize for the little snafu there, but we are back online, guys. Sorry about that. Okay. So again, I guess one of the things I'm trying to say is I know what I was talking about. So I was talking about, what it takes and a little bit of healthy fear from our representatives. Okay. I want our representatives to know that they need to do what their constituents expect of them. If they campaign to lower taxes, they should lower taxes. If they campaign to do whatever, and that's what they get voted on for, and that's the platform on which they run, barring extreme circumstances, right? Like, 9/11, for instance, was arguably a game changer for the Bush campaign, right? That certainly changes a lot of tactics and a lot of strategy that you're working on. So, again, the point of it is that I want there to be a little bit of healthy fear from our representatives to know that they need to do what their constituents want. So, Justin, I see you made a point on here. Well, let's see here. A vote should not prove just to remove the rights of others. I agree with the express minds. Again, I think, if we talk about this, a lot of us guys, we could talk about this all day. Some people, they look at me and they think, you're not taking a strong enough stance. You're not being stout enough. You're not speaking loudly enough. Well, if we had other options, guys, if I just go out and did what I think might be okay in today's socially, politically correct world, it could look very negatively on Second Amendment supporters. In some cases, it might even potentially get you landed in jail, okay? I'd like to see that be undone so that we can have the ability to speak our freedoms a little bit more freely. Preacher, did I get your email about the Electoral College in Virginia? If I did, I've not seen it yet. I apologize. I'll try to look at that. Justin, you brought up a good point, though. So Justin's also mentioning when we talk about some of these firearm laws, we've talked about the fact that there was a red flag law introduced in Tennessee. We're seeing these laws get pushed in North Carolina, in Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, and Justin's pointing out another one in Arizona. So Arizona is moving forward with many of the same gun control laws as Virginia, as well as New Mexico. I saw a video the other day. There were several sheriffs in New Mexico that had went up to their capital and were campaigning against some of the Second Amendment infringement laws that were, basically coming forward there. So they're pursuing them there as well, guys. Now, is that Bloomberg's money? I would probably have to guess it's probably in there somewhere, right? He has a lot of money in this. He has a lot of vested interest, and he's getting a lot of people elected all across our republic. And I think as he does, he's going to be calling in and expecting those to get paid back. So, anyhow, Preacher, I will look at your email about the Electoral College. It's another one of the ones. Let's go ahead and use that as a segue. So, HB 177, House Bill 177. Some of you previously may have known that as House Bill 199. We've talked a little bit about it here on the channel before. This is the electoral, the National Voting Compact, okay? What that says, and again, I know we've talked about it before, but I'm going to reiterate that for anybody that doesn't know. The National Voting Compact is essentially a bill that says that Virginia will enter into a compact with several other states that the electoral votes for the state, which for those of you who know, the Electoral College is the way that our presidents are elected, okay? There's a national popular vote. Every state is assigned a number of electoral votes based upon the number of people living in that state. That's why every 10 years when they do a census, that's so very important, because that can change the number of electoral votes assigned to each state. Now, why did our founders do that? They did that so that basically campaigning has to happen all across the republic. If it was based purely on population, then guys, anybody that was living in Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, a lot of places in Kansas, in a lot of places in Oklahoma, in a lot of places in just about probably 70 or 80% of the U.S., you would never see a campaign in your area because they wouldn't have to come there. All they would have to do is go to some of the large areas across the republic, and in those areas campaign there, and they would get the national popular vote. That's basically what Clinton did. By the way, guys, I know you are putting a lot of comments in here, so Jason's keeping an eye on those comments. If there's anything that comes up, Jay, that's important, just let me know. So I know there's a lot of things in there. Some of you guys are talking back and forth, but I'm going to keep on going here about this electoral voting compact. So that's what the Electoral College is, and that's the way that we elect our presidents, okay? The Electoral College is the one that matters. And again, that's the one that matters because, again, they wanted to make sure that it was something that was distributed all across the republic. Now, what does HB 177 do? Actually, let me back up a little bit more. We know at the national level, we've heard the Democrats for a while now, we're going to try their best. Aaron Tate's great to have you, brother. I appreciate keeping you. I'm glad we're keeping you up to date. I hope this is useful. Sorry, I just want to jump it off. I know we saw that, but I want to make sure this is something useful for everybody. So I appreciate that feedback, Aaron. Thank you. The national compact vote, or at the national level, the Democrats have been trying to undo the Electoral College. They want the popular vote to be the only thing that basically elects the president. Now, that's also particularly important because if you know in the last voting cycle for the presidential elections, you know, Hillary Clinton did win the national popular vote. Now, the other problem with the national popular vote, we know on both sides probably, but in recent years, it's been more on the Democratic side, that there's been a lot of questionable numbers. We just came out of the Democratic caucuses in Iowa, and it took them like 2 days to get the results out. Okay, maybe it was 24 hours. It took them a whole day to get the numbers out. Now, they say that they're fine. They say that they're secure. They say that they're accurate. But, you know, it's like they can't even do that in a small area in Iowa. It does make you question how accurate they can do that at the national level. The electoral votes, on the other hand, are much easier to track. In each state, there are individuals. And now an electoral vote is still an individual, guys, okay? There are electoral voters. There have been some presidential campaigns in the past that have came down to a number of 2 or 3 individuals that were basically going to be the ones that determined who the president was going to be. Some people at that point in time also challenged the Electoral College. But again, that's the way our system is designed, and it does spread out the power. Now, I would also say that usually, it doesn't always happen, there's been a number of rare occasions where the electoral vote from a state has been in opposition to what the popular vote of that state was. But normally, if a state votes for Donald Trump, for instance, the electoral votes will go to Donald Trump. That's the normal path that it goes. Not always. Okay. Again, this last voting cycle for the presidential campaign, Hillary got the national popular vote, but Donald Trump won the electoral vote. Okay. Some would call that strategizing. I would just call that's the way the Constitution says to do it. It's constitutional. So I don't think that's not cheating. That is what the way our system works. You know. So, anyways, HB 177. Again, they at the national level they've not been able to take away the Electoral College, and I think they realize they can't. Right? I think they know they can't just take that away. So what they're trying to do now with this national this national electoral voting compact is they're going down to the state level and say, okay, well, if we can't get rid of it at the national level, at the federal level, let's go to the states and let's get these states to join a compact that what they're basically going to say is the states will give their electoral votes to whoever wins the national popular vote. So theoretically, let's say that Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, let's say that every single person in the state of Virginia, and I know this probably never would happen, but let's just say that every single person in Virginia in this next cycle, let's say, votes for Donald Trump. 100% of Virginians vote for Donald Trump, okay? But let's say the national popular vote, let's say that there's a cat in the window. Let's say that that Buttigieg or Bernie Sanders or maybe Hillary comes out of the woods and she runs. But let's say that someone else wins at the popular level, okay? The national popular vote, then even though 100% of Virginian citizens vote for Trump, the electoral votes will go to, you know, Bernie Sanders if he wins the national popular vote, for instance. What is, to me, just absolutely mind-boggling and amazing about this is it really makes for a state. I mean, your vote is it completely does away with the electoral college. I mean, really, it really does. It's another way of doing away with it. It basically, but your vote is not as important for your state. It means nothing. It literally, you could again vote for Donald Trump, and 100% of the state could vote for Donald Trump, but they're going to give it to whoever wins the national popular vote, which is not the way that it's supposed to work. Okay, it would literally make it so that all the people campaigning would have to do is go to, probably areas like Dallas, LA, San Francisco, maybe Seattle. Think of a number of maybe other large metropolitan, maybe Atlanta, maybe. I don't know if Atlanta might be qualified as large enough. There might be some areas in Florida, maybe Jacksonville or Tallahassee. I don't know. But, we know New York. We know Chicago, probably Dallas, Fort Worth. We know San Francisco, Los Angeles. The number of people there, guys, the number of people there just about equals the rest of the United States in those areas, okay? So, again, HB 177 is a horrible bill. Today was the last day for it also to come up in the House, and it also passed. The House, it passed. I'll get you the exact numbers. It passed 51 to 46. Again, I don't have the exact breakdown as far as Republican versus Democrat for that. But essentially, guys, that is a huge, as I forget the name that was saying it here earlier, but that is a huge impact on our constitutional process. So as equally so as HB 961 is an infringement on the Second Amendment, and I stand fast in that. I really believe that. This House Bill 177 is equally an infringement of the Constitution when it comes to an infringement on a constitutional process. Now, it's not a constitutional right, but it is a constitutional process. So there's a lot of comments going on about some of the different codes and stuff. And I want to mention this. So there was an interesting conversation that was going on. We've mentioned it before here that Senator Chase is a senator here from Virginia. She is also pursuing an option to recall Governor Northam. Okay. Now, I want to use this to kind of tie back to what I was saying earlier about political correctness. There were a couple of different efforts that started at different levels of the state before Senator Chase took up the baton to look at a recall for Governor Northam, okay? The way that I understand it, those other efforts just essentially didn't have the political clout. They didn't have the finances. They didn't have the appropriate paperwork. Whatever the reason may have been, they had a number of different reasons that they were unable to be considered valid for moving forward. Senator Chase is working and putting together the paperwork. My understanding as of yesterday, it's still not been officially filed. So if you have signed one of the previous ones, I've been telling folks, be ready to sign again, okay? Because you can sign the one that will probably have the most chance of making a difference. But Senator Chase is going to try to move forward with a recall of Governor Northam. That is a legal process. It's 100% legal. It's 100% legit. If she can get all the paperwork, all the signatures, and all the right, T's crossed and I's dotted appropriately. With that being said, let me just share. This is Jeff Arrington speaking here. Okay, this is just me. Okay, do I think even if she gets everything that they're going to recall him? Personally, no, I don't. And I'll tell you why I don't think they will. It's not politically correct. Okay, if you question that, guys, this is nothing new. This has been around forever. Again, as a steward of history, I'm not a historian, but I do love American history. I love world history. I love cultural history. I'm not, again, an expert. I won't claim to be an expert in anything, but I know a lot about history. I'll say that very, very plainly, okay? What I will tell you is if you want to know how far this goes back, guys, regardless of the reasons of the Civil War, okay? Now, it was a power struggle, whether you think it was power struggle, whether you think it was financial, whether you think it was over slavery, whatever you think it was. Put all that aside a second. Put all that aside. What the South tried to do, well, they did secede, but what they tried to do by staying an independent nation was perfectly constitutional, okay? If you go back and if you look at what they did, they had the appropriate states. They did, Virginia and West Virginia, guys, that was originally just one state, okay? Even that state split, okay? Now, that remained in place over their differences of the impacts of the Civil War. So even back in the 1860s, even then, the people had already lost enough influence and there had already became enough political incorrectness in society to impact our ability to enforce legal laws. Okay. And this is the gray area of laws, right? I'll be the first to admit that when I was younger, I was much more naive about laws. And I thought laws were something that, it was just black and white. Like you did this and you got this. And I guess I never really thought about why we needed lawyers or why we needed judges. But, why do you need a good lawyer? Well, guys, a bad lawyer, take the exact same situation and put a bad lawyer in there, one that's not as good. And they very well may not be able to get their client to win the case. Okay. Take the exact same case and put a really, really good lawyer in there, really very wise. Maybe he has a little more resources, et cetera, and they might be able to get something for their client. Okay. So, the laws are not black and white. Okay. And political correctness absolutely, flows into the way that the processes work, here in our republic. It's not black and white. It's a very, very gray area. Okay. So I don't think, even if she probably gets numbers, I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm not trying to be negative. Okay. I guess, I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket thinking that that's what it's going to take. If either we recall Governor Northam or we don't, and that's it. Right. I'm perfectly fine. And in fact, I advocate for the path that Senator Chase is taking. I think it's a good path because in the same way that the Second Amendment sanctuary statuses across the Commonwealth were not legal, they make a very powerful statement. Okay. And I think if we were to get everything in line to do a recall, and let's say that they, for whatever reason, reject it and it doesn't happen, that's a huge, powerful statement. Guys, look at the federal level with what just happened with Trump and his impeachment hearings. Okay. What the Democrats pushed through was ridiculous. It was an absolute joke. It was a farce of a process. Okay. Where are we going with this? I'm trying to make a segue here. We've been going on for 36 minutes. Let's try to make a segue and talk a little bit about strategy. I want to start out by talking about something that I've talked before on this channel. But whenever someone talks to me about, and I'm going to be very honest, guys, there are people in Scott County, there are people all across the Commonwealth, there are people all across the nation that want to basically jump into really, quite honestly, a very uncivil, situation, right? And when I say uncivil, I'm not speaking negatively, but they want to go into like a civil war. They want to take up their arms and they want to go do something, right? They're getting frustrated. They're getting upset. Completely justified, guys. Completely across the board. Completely justified to get upset. Completely understandable to get frustrated with the situation. And then there are some folks that are even criticizing our group, and they're saying you're not strong enough. You're not making enough of a statement. You're being too weak. We've heard things, it doesn't have enough teeth in it. It needs some more teeth. And people are asking us, why are we not doing that? Well, and that's what I want to talk a little bit here about. What is our strategy? Why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we still at the table talking, right? And, so let me say this first off, just to really get this out there really in the open here. Nothing that they have talked about so far is a law yet. And it may never be a law. Okay. Now it could be, it might happen that it becomes a law, but it's not right now. Okay. So first off, this would be like you talking to your neighbor and your neighbor looking at you saying, you know what, one of these days when you sell that house, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to tear it down. Now, when your neighbor says that, can you go criticize and, charge your neighbor for tearing down your house? No, he's just saying that one day, when and if this happens, and I get it, I'm going to tear it down. Now, that's essentially what the Democrats are trying to do. They're working through that process. Now, they may be a little bit more further in that process. To my analogy, they might be working with the local city ordinance to try to get a lien against your property, or not a lien, but to basically try to get maybe some, Jason, what's the term for whenever you take over, the city takes over part of your property? Eminent domain. That's what it is. Eminent domain. They might be trying to work on an eminent domain process, right? So in my analogy, I'd say that's probably where the Democrats are. They are absolutely trying to get their foot in the door to take over our house, if you will. Okay. And I agree with that. Okay. But at that point in time, so let's continue with our analogy. Let's say as an angry neighbor, you go over and you just, you beat up your neighbor, or you go onto his property and you have some really heavy words with him. Now, he can go out and get a protective order against you. he can go out and use that to justify what he's trying to do to take your property. If you attack him, he can put you in jail. Okay. Guys, I mean, that's just the way our process is right now. Is it wrong that you can't be politically correct? Yes, it is. I wish it was not, but that's not going to get overturned overnight. Okay. So let's back up a little bit here. And again, I'm saying none of these things are laws, and I'll talk through an analogy, but let's talk about risk mitigation, right? Risk assessment. And for some of you who are watching this, maybe you've heard me talk about this before. But when I think about with where we are, there's three scenarios, three particular scenarios. You can maybe argue a fourth or a fifth, but there's three key scenarios that I think about when I think about what's happening in Virginia. And you have to think about the risk involved in each one of these scenarios. Okay. So let's talk through those scenarios. Scenario one is the risk of where we are right now. So, for the most part, we have our freedoms, we have our liberty, we have the Electoral College, we can have our so-called assault, we can have our assault rifles. That assault rifle, by the way, the original one is not in their bill, but that's the original assault rifle. Don't be fooled. They'll eventually come for all of them. I really believe that. But for the moment, we basically have our freedoms. We have our firearms. We don't have red flag laws. We have due process. We can face our accusers. I'm trying to think of some of the bills they put through. The red flag law does away with some of those. At the moment, we basically have those abilities. We have those rights preserved, right? Now, so you think about the risk. Think about your family, okay? What is the risk to your family in the current situation? Now, that's scenario one right now, okay? So take that, plug it in your mind, set it aside for a second. Let's talk about the next scenario. And I'm going to go to the extreme case. And I'll come back to the second one in a moment. If all-out civil war broke out and there was complete uncivility across the Commonwealth or across the entire republic, guys, you have to think about this. A lot of people don't realize this in the Civil War. It happened right here in Hilton's, Virginia, as a matter of fact. There was a gentleman right up the river who was shot by some folks that were dressed up. And I don't remember the exact story if they were dressed up as Union soldiers or if they were dressed up as Confederate soldiers, but they were dressed up as the opposition for this area. I do believe most of this area, I think, was actually still strongly Union, so they may have been dressed up as Confederates. But they drove up the river, and they were literally just a bunch of bandits. They were just a crazy gang of guys, possibly some gals too, I don't know, but guys that were going around, and they shot a gentleman right up the river here. Shot and killed him. He died, of course. He was shot in the head. But they pillaged, okay? Guys, when you have absolute chaos like that, understand that we do not have the National Guard, the military, and the police force to go out and protect every single person. It just does not exist. And by the way, furthermore, our police force has no obligation to the individual. They are only to protect safety at large, okay? That's just legally speaking. I can't quote you the case for that. You can look it up. Feel free to quote me on it. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But it is my understanding the police have no obligation to save the individual. They are only under obligation to ensure that safety at large is protected. So in complete uncivility, in a Civil War scenario, ask yourself, what would be the risk to your family with where you live, to your job, to your ability to feed your family, right? Because the economy would tank. The economy would not be good. Yes, I know that someone made hot sauce, I think it was, during the middle of the Civil War. But generally speaking, people don't do a lot of economical development during a Civil War, okay? The economy doesn't do so well, okay? So ask yourself, how would your job go? How would you feed your family? If you're living in a large urban area, you might think, well, I feel pretty good with the number of police officers around here. But ask yourself this question. If all of a sudden food supplies get risky, how will you feed your family, right? I can tell you that during the Great Depression, a lot of urban families would once a week, very commonly, even if not more frequently, go visit their rural families. Why did they do that? Because rural families could have gardens. They had meat they could hunt, right? In an urban environment, guys, you don't have that same type of resource available to you. So you might have a larger police presence and you might not feel the risk from bandits, but how would you feed your family? What would happen to your job? What would happen to the economics of your family? In the rural area, I alluded to it there, bandits, these crazy little groups, that would absolutely come about, right? There would be gangs that would go out, and if they disagree with you, they would just probably shoot and kill you. So you think about the risk. That's that other scenario. pure, let's just call it Civil War, right? If it goes to that, think about the risk there. Now, I think we can all agree that the risk there of your family is certainly a lot worse than the risk of where we are now. Okay. Now, the third scenario is a little interesting. It's kind of a dynamic scenario. Okay, because it's the changing scenario that we are going through. Okay, so if we've got now and we've got in the future. I'm looking on the camera here. So we've got now, we've got our current, we've got our future. This last one is kind of starting where we are now, and it's moving this way. Okay, that's what I want to try to paint here. Let's say that they pass HB 961 and the red flag laws, the universal background checks, et cetera, and 10 years from now they've taken away all of our firearms. 10 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, right? Whatever it may be, guys, as we go down this path and more of our rights are taken away, because by the way, in Civil War, let me put this out too. In Civil War, you're going to have martial law, okay? So a lot of the rights that you're used to having, like freedom of speech and a lot of the other items that you enjoy, these freedoms, these liberties to stay out late, there's going to be curfews. There'll be all kinds of things that will infringe upon your ability to act with liberty and freedom, okay? As we go down this path from current to that point, you get closer and closer where tyranny might become extreme to the point of communism or extreme tyranny, where we know things that have happened like with Hitler, Stalin, Mao, and others, right? And that's certainly a huge risk in that scenario. Now, if I take the scenario of the Civil War, right, versus say Hitler being in charge, I think you're pretty close to even there, maybe even a little bit worse, right? So the point I'm making here, that last scenario, it was a traveling one, right, guys? That's the one that says, okay, they passed the bills. Now what's our risk? Let's say that they pass a bill that takes away the electoral college. Now where are we at? Let's say that they pass a bill that say you don't have freedom of speech until you have a high school education. Okay, then where are we at? They say, oh, by the way, you don't have freedom of religion. Okay, then where are we at? You see, as you do that, you're stepping down and further, and you're increasing the risk. Okay, your risk gets more and more and more. Again, this is current. This is that Civil War, right? Right now, your risk level may be down. I hope I can make this show right. Maybe you're down here. Let's say that Civil War's up here. Okay, guys, as we lose each one of these, the risk does get higher and higher as far as what it means for us and our liberties and our freedoms and our way of life. But to jump straight to here from here, right, doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would we look at the risk that we have now? And why would we take an action that says, okay, we're going to bump the risk from this all the way up to here like that? That makes no sense, okay? Let's go back and think about history a second, guys. In the Civil War, there's people in the Civil War that they really believe that the Civil War happened like over a couple of years. I just asked my son the other day. He's studying in school, and I said, how long do you think it took for that to happen? And he said, like 3 to 5 years or something, Guys, that's what they're being taught. And I'm not criticizing our teachers, guys. It would take a whole class, probably, 6 months to really learn the Civil War well. That's a difficult predicament. You want to learn the key pieces. But guys, the Civil War built up over 20 or 30 years. A lot of people don't realize it was, I don't remember the exact year. Don't quote me here. I apologize. But it was the late 1820s or early 1830s was when the first state threatened to secede, okay? And it was over taxes and power and influence and finances, like many things. Follow the dollar and you're going to find the reason, okay? The Civil War didn't start over a number of 2 or 3 or 5 years or even 10 years. It took 20 or 30 years of buildup, okay, of division, divisiveness, divisive politics, nasty politics. Listen, let's just be honest with it, guys. When we think about the Emancipation Proclamation, he held on to that for 2 years before he used it. He used it because it politically fit the situation. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and have a whole conversation about Abraham Lincoln, but look it up. You can look up whenever he first had that speech and when he could have used it versus when he actually enacted the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay. It was political. And that's completely skipped over in our history books, right? They don't talk about the way that they used it. They just praise these actions. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation was fantastic, and it should have went in a lot sooner. It would have been great if it could have happened in 1776 when our nation was founded, right? Whole nother story there. But the point of it is, guys, follow power, follow greed, follow money and the love for money, and you'll likely find where and the root causes of what's causing a lot of these things. So the divisive tactics that were being used from, say, the 1830s forward to the Civil War are very similar. They're akin to what we're seeing and maybe seen for the last couple of decades, right? Now, I can't speak strongly about the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but from the 90s forward, I can say I've seen more and more tension. I've seen more and more divisiveness, right? I really think I saw a huge, strong boost to divisiveness from the last presidential administration. I'm not saying that racism's good. Should we have no racism? That would be wonderful, guys. But unfortunately, we live in a fallen world. If you're looking for rainbow and unicorn land where everybody's happy and everybody gets along, I'm sorry to tell you this, but that will never happen on earth until Christ comes back. I believe that very firmly as a Christian. I'm not being pessimistic. Call me prophetic if you want to, but that's in the Bible. That's what I read. That's what it's there, and it is prophecy, and I believe in it wholeheartedly. Okay. So the strategy, let's continue on a little more, guys. We can't jump from risk of way down here to way up here. We just can't do that. So the strategy that we are taking is we will exhaust every political and legal action that we possibly can. Okay. And Mitchell Reese, I see you sitting there printing it, and I am terribly ashamed to say that I did not bring my Bible down here today. We kind of last second put this together. I do not have my Bible with me. I've got my phone on Facebook. You can look it up if you don't care, Jason. Look that one up for us. So he'll look it up, Brother Mitchell. Whenever time we see some quotes from the Bible, we try to look those up, guys. But the point of it is, guys, if you're frustrated with the slowness to our process, or the fact that we're still talking, or the fact that we're still at the table having conversations, what I would greatly ask from you is to have patience with the process and understand that risk that I just talked about, right? The risk down here is now, the risk up here is as if we had total chaos. We've got to take our time. We've got to exhaust our resources. We can't just jump our risk all the way up there. We can't let that happen. Guys, during the Revolutionary War, I've said this before, the Declaration of Independence, they exhausted their options as well before they went into a revolution. A lot of people think the revolution just, there was the shot that hurt around the world and they just went and got mad. They got their guns and fought them. No, guys, that built up over several years, okay? George Washington, 20 years before the founding of our country, was fighting for the British, okay? So 20 years later, he fought, on the side of the citizens of America, of the colonials. There's a lot that can happen over a period of time. And the reason I say all this, guys, if we keep the pressure on, if that whole risk that I just pointed out to you there, right? If we let our representatives, and particularly the Democrats that are voting for a lot of these unconstitutional things, if we portray to them and let them understand what they are putting us down, the risks that they are adding to us, and the course that they are setting, that's our best chance right now to overturn the actions that they're doing. Okay, if we instead choose to do more drastic actions, all that's going to do is add fuel to the fire. All that's going to do is justify, in their mind, it's going to justify everything that they've already done. Okay, they're going to be happy with what has happened. Okay, if there was drastic, guys, look what happened at Lobby Day, right? January 20th, we were in Richmond. We were there. It was very, very, very peaceful, okay? Everything about that event was a good event, but look at how the media has twisted it, okay? Now, that was a good event. That was Second Amendment supporters that had their firearms that were peaceful, okay? And look at how that's being twisted. Imagine if there were Second Amendment supporters that maybe were a little less civil and how that would look. Okay. And guys, unfortunately, the media is against us on this because good news does not sell. Let's just be honest about it. Not only that, but the pocketbooks of many of the media outlets worldwide are, of course, in the pockets of Bloomberg and Soros and others. Okay. We could do a whole video on the organizations that control a lot of what's going on. Right. And again, that could be a whole other video on its own. So, when we talk about the strategy, guys, our strategy is pretty simple. It's a risk mitigation strategy. It's looking at the risk now, looking at the risk in the worst case scenario, and we're trying to determine as we go along this slide, at what point do you take more actions? We are far from that. We're years from that, guys. I hope. I pray. Okay, I pray we never get there. I pray we never have to pass this precipice, okay? I do believe very firmly if we all stand together, and if we work together, united as one voice, guys, this is as grassroots as it gets. I've talked to the other administrators of this group, and I have told them, I've said, guys, listen, because we've talked about, there's been some folks talking to us about getting our 503c, blah, 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 tax-free, this, that. We can get donations, this, that. I've told them, I've said, guys, I don't want nothing to do with that, because that's how greed and corruption creeps in. That's how it gets involved, okay? The folks that are involved with this group right now, I will tell you right now, every single one of them, they are paying money out of their pockets. They are taking their time to come and be a part of this group and try to get the news out. They're trying to get the information out to you guys, okay? I don't want the Board of Supervisors paying our way. I don't want some government organization. I don't want to be reliant on a government organization paying the money for me to be able to do this. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain economic resources that provide us the ability to do this. Our jobs, we all have jobs. We're all working individuals. We're doing what we can on our own free, independent time, not associated with any organization. We're not associated with the NRA. We're not associated with the VCDL or the GOA or any other gun rights organization out there. So when people say the gun lobby, well, guys, the gun lobby for the most part is people that support the Second Amendment, right? I mean, yes, the NRA pumps a lot of dollars into it. They pump millions of dollars into it, in fact. They don't pump as much as people seem to talk about the NRA spending a couple million, but they don't talk about the fact that, Bloomberg has said he's going to commit $500 million to his campaign, which is vastly anti-gun, okay? So, again, our strategy here, guys, is a very disciplined strategy. It's a very I want to say this too. For anybody that looks at us and says, you guys are weak, you ain't strong enough. Guys, let me ask you a question. If there's someone that is talking about attacking you, what's easier? Is it easier to have patience and sit there and try to de-escalate the situation and handle it peacefully and legally and legitimately? Or is it easier just to go over and raise cane and start fighting with them? Now, I'm not saying that protecting yourself is bad. I'm not saying that sometimes doing that's not wrong. Sometimes that may be the right thing to do, okay? I was raised in a family where, guys, listen, I got suspended from school for having some fist fights, okay? I will tell you that my parents stood by me and they said I was justified. I was defending myself, right? I can tell you that even in some of those cases where I was justified, I was a little hot-headed, okay? High school particular, for some of those of you may know my background. In high school, some events that happened, I was a little hot-headed and I should have handled them better. It wasn't politically correct. I was on the right side, and I even had officers tell me I was on the right side, even then, okay? But just because you're on the right side doesn't mean it's going to work out well for you. And that's an important fact to know. So when you think about what is harder, what is more difficult, it is much more difficult to be patient and to be very strategic, to be very disciplined in your approach, and try to take it to them in a legitimate way that will beat them and put it down forever, right? Because, guys, again, all it would take if there was an uprising and we won, right? All it would take is 50 years from now, they portray that as a negative thing, right? If we go through all the legal processes, it makes it that much harder for them to twist it. Can they still twist it? Sure they can. They twisted Lobby Day. Lobby Day was a perfectly peaceful, great event. I mean, the only negative that happened there was what the Democrats put on us, what Northam tried to force us. They crammed everybody into these tight groups on the streets that made it very uncomfortable, very kind of chaotic even. And that was because of what they did. So, Jay, did you find that scripture? Yeah, I'm going to let you read it. I'll let you.
Here you go. Go ahead.
What was it again?
It was that
Zephaniah. What was
2, verse 3.
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 3. This was from Brother Mitchell. Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 3. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. Guys, that's Brother Mitchell, I really like that. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I've ever heard that verse of scripture. But be meek, have wrought in judgment, seek righteousness, seek meekness, and then maybe in that day that you may be hid from the Lord's anger. I really, really like that. The Bible talks about those that are blessed are the peacekeepers, guys. And again, I'm not trying to say that, that we're blessed for doing this, right? I'm not.
It's a very short book in the Bible too. That's a fan of only 2 chapters, period.
Yeah. Interesting. I will say I've not spent a lot of time in there. So, Brother Mitchell, thank you for sharing that. But guys, the point of it is we do want to keep the peace. When you think about that drawing that I said between the risk of now to complete uncivility, right? Picture that. When you think about why we're doing what we're doing, I want you to think about that risk. There's been some very blunt conversations I've had with some people. There's some people that are just like, we need to get our guns and we need to go into Richmond. I've talked to people like that. I have. And I've told them, I've said, listen, you are being a fool. Period. You are being a fool if you want to do that now. If you hear someone say that, I want you to look at them and say, do you want innocent people to start dying next week? Oh, well, they'll get all excited. But it's the truth, guys. If we went straight to Civil War today, by next week, innocent people would be dying. Now, I've never served in a war zone. Some of you I know have. If there is anybody there, if there's anybody out there that can say that in a war, innocent people do not die, please speak up. I want to hear about that war where innocent people do not die. Okay? Guys, it happens. Innocent people die during war. Now, in extreme cases of tyranny, they also die. Okay? Innocent people die right now in our current environment. Okay? But there's different levels of it within each one of those scenarios. We don't want to jump to that extreme scenario. It takes great patience, diligence, discipline, and strategy to get there. As we're working on this path from current to this worst path, somewhere along that way, November, it's going to plateau a little bit, right? Maybe next year we take it over, it'll plateau, maybe start to drop a little bit. The risk goes back down. They start removing some of those bills, we're going to start dropping real fast. The risk drops real fast. What's up, Jason?
Express Minds is just thrown in that human rights are greater than innocent people's lives. So I don't know how they get that. I don't quite see the agreement there.
Express Minds, if what you said there with your inequality sign, if you were saying that truly that human rights is greater than innocent people,
where's their rights?
Well, to some degree, okay. So to some degree, and Express Minds. I don't know if you mean this, but let me take this to make a point. There's a valid point there.
I agree. There's a point.
There's an old saying that says freedom. What do you prefer? Do you prefer dangerous freedom or peaceful slavery? Okay. In dangerous freedom, you have human rights and innocent, and that does say that innocent people will get injured. So I don't know what you meant by that, Express Minds. Okay, that's what you're saying. Perfect. Okay, so that's what he was saying. So good. So that was the point. And I want to, yes, the point of it is human rights are more important than the individuals, because the reason that's important. So yes, if you have dangerous freedom, will bad things happen? Yes, they will. Freedom is very dangerous, guys. Okay. Peaceful slavery. Do you have peace? Well, I mean, that's arguable. I mean, I don't know that slavery is necessarily synonymous with peace, right? But you know, I guess then the power would be in the very controlled, and you know, if you did something, they could just kill you because you did that, and you might call that peaceful. But to me, in dangerous freedom, you know, when you have freedom of religion, you have freedom from tyranny, you have due process, you can face your accusers, you have the right to defend yourself however you see most fit. Okay. And we're talking about arms here. We're not saying get a nuclear bomb and put it on your porch, that whenever someone tries to break in, you blow up the entire neighborhood, before some crazy out there says to suggest that. Okay. You do have the right to protect yourself with arms. Okay. I don't care if you want to have a tank, by the way, right? That's fine. As long as you don't use it to hurt somebody. Right? The capacity does not mean that you're guilty of anything. We all have a car that can speed, but I'll dare say there's probably folks in this channel that have never had a speeding ticket. I can't claim that, but you know, I'd like to think that I won't ever have it. So Express Minds, I would say you're exactly right. Individual rights are incredibly important, and they're incredibly important because even though freedom is dangerous, guys, when we say peaceful slavery, that's just really an oxymoron in my mind. It's hard to say that, even with the old quote, but slavery would be more dangerous and would be more detrimental to everybody. Okay. That's where only the elite have the power. That's what Hitler was in, right? That's what Hitler did to the Jews, right? Hitler would have said that was very, very peaceful. We're getting rid of these scars upon our society that are no good, right? So, Jason, does that make more sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It does make sense.
And Preacher came in with an excellent comment here.
Here, hang on a minute. Let's get you here. Jason's online here as well, guys. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, well, Preacher came in with it is the ones who never tasted war that thirst for war. And
That's
the
right.
ones who tasted war knows to explore all their options before picking a fight. Excellent comment there from Preacher.
Absolutely. So guys, just in case you hadn't heard Jason, he's exactly right. The ones that you hear screaming about war, I hate to relate it to Barney Fife, but guys, it's the Barney Fife with his bullet, right? They get real excited and they think, oh, let's do this. This will be fun, right? I've never been in a war zone. My father did serve in the military. He did serve during wartime. You know, that's even completely irrelevant because I don't even have to have that to understand that war zones are not good. We need to avoid them at all costs, okay? So anyways, guys, we've been going for a little over an hour. I know I kind of rambled at a couple of points. I'm not the best at sitting here talking about this, but I enjoy sitting around the fire. I enjoy sitting underneath my original assault weapon. By the way, I shouldn't even say that even with my quotes. For those of you who are on here, I just want to make this closing thought. I've said on here before that the education is a big part of this. Guys, this is going to be our strategy is a long battle. Our strategy doesn't end in November. Our strategy doesn't end next year. Our strategy doesn't end 5 or 10 years from now. This is a change. This is a permanent change. And that's what I would like to see put in place. A permanent, different way of thinking. A way of thinking that says, if I stand up for my rights, that's not wrong. If I stand up to someone that's oppressing me, don't call me the bad person, right? You know, there was a funny meme I saw a while back, and it had these two people talking. And, you know, one pointed at the other and it said, we're going to take away your guns. And the other person said, you know, something like, you'll take it from my cold, dead hands. And then the other person looked back at him and said, why are you threatening me? And it's like, well, just picture that for a minute, the three pictures, right? The person that said, we're going to take away your guns, that's the threat. But what is our society is seeing it exactly like that third picture where they look at the people that are saying, you're not going to take away my rights. And then they call us the aggressors. That's exactly what they're doing. And we've got to diffuse that. We've got to get back to a point in time, guys, where political correctness does not outweigh rights. Political correctness does not outweigh truth. I do believe if you stand by the truth will stand. I do believe our God-given rights, they're God-given rights that have been granted to us. And God is with us in these, guys. It's the same with abortion. I saw something earlier Buttigieg put out, and he was talking about, and I'm sorry to get on abortion for a second, but Buttigieg was trying to say something like the Bible claims that life begins with the first breath. You know the little meme that has the guy throwing up? That's exactly what I picture, okay? Guys, you can take words of the Bible and twist it for bad. I want to be very, very clear. The end of the day says that there will be prophets that will be, you know, I totally butchered there, but essentially that there will be false prophets at the end of days, okay? There are going to be people that will take God's word and they will twist it for their fleshly desires, okay? Now, the Bible is the living word. The Bible speaks to each one of us. I do believe that two people can read a verse of Scripture and God can speak to them differently through that. But you've got to be careful that you don't let your fleshly desires be the driving force behind how your interpretation comes out from that. Okay. Does your interpretation of that scripture align with the rest of Scripture? Okay. If it doesn't, then that should really make you challenge your interpretation. So for, you know, again, the point of it is here, guys, like Buttigieg twisting that, saying that life begins with the first breath. I mean, he's picking a verse of Scripture and he's twisting it to his fleshly desires. He's trying to run to be a president. He was in the military, guys. If you've read about his military career, he bypassed all the training. He went in there. He even talks about whenever he was over in Iraq, how he sat up on the top of the roof with a cigar, calling back into his meetings back home. I mean, his military service was a farce. It was a joke. Yes, he served. You know, I'm sorry if that offends anybody, guys. No offense to any veterans out there, because, you know, most of our veterans are well deserving of all the respect and admiration they can get. But just go out and read up on Buttigieg and his military experience. He deserves, I would say, minimal amount of respect for it. Let's put it that way. I don't want to say none.
1776 says Scientology. That is the Scientology's. That's what they express of life.
1776Q says that. Scientology says that a baby has no spirit until it's born. Well, I'm a believer that God knows you before you were even in the womb. You know, at the point in time that you are conceived, that is where God intervened and he brings you to life. That's just the way I stand. I don't want to get on a whole tangent here of abortion, but guys, my whole point of all this is God gave us these rights. These are God-given rights. If we stay the course if we stand united, if VCDL members will stand hand in hand with their brothers from the NRA, hand in hand with their brothers from the GOA, hand in hand with their brothers and sisters all across this nation that are true Second Amendment supporters, we can do this. Let me also say this. This is important for some of the younger folks out there, okay? I don't know the demographics of our viewers, but I want to point this out because I had a very interesting conversation with a younger gentleman here in Hilton's recently. It was actually in Gate City. He was having a conversation with me, and he said he was a full supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm going to guess this gentleman's early 20s. I don't know exactly how old, early to mid 20s. He said he was a full supporter of the Second Amendment, and he stands by the Second Amendment completely as it's written. But he agreed in some common sense laws. It was funny because I was already late. I was trying to get out there, and as soon as he said that, he said, "But I think there's middle ground here. We all can agree on the common sense laws." And I stopped and I backed up and I said, "Well, okay, that's an interesting comment because to me the common sense law is the Second Amendment. So if you're saying this, you believe in the Second Amendment, but you also agree with common sense laws," I said, "What are these common sense laws?" And he started to talk about the law that says that if you're a minor, if you're younger than 18 or younger, actually I think it is 18 and younger, that you should not be able to access a loaded firearm in your house. And if you can, then the parents could be charged as a felon or be held criminally liable. Maybe not as a felon, but as a misdemeanor or whatever it may be. And he was completely comfortable with that. And I challenged him. I said, okay, well, think about this for a second. You're saying that you agree with the second, but you're okay with saying minors can't have access to a loaded firearm. And essentially that they shouldn't practice their Second Amendment rights. I said, would it make sense to say that maybe before someone has the freedom of speech, they have to pass the 11th grade? Let's just arbitrarily say maybe they have to finish an English college course, right? And you can see where this is going. Real quickly, he disagreed. No, of course not. That's different. And I said, see, the problem of it is you're putting a specification on how people can exercise their rights and on what conditions they can exercise their rights. You do not lose your rights unless you've done something to justify losing your rights, okay? They are inalienable to you until you do something, do action that justifies a restriction on your rights. And you have to do something. You have to typically it's a very violent offense, right? Typically it is a felony, which is probably why they're trying to make some of these gun laws felonies. But the point I'm trying to make here about our younger generation, for any of our younger folks, if you're watching this channel and you say that you're a supporter of the Second Amendment, but you agree with maybe some of these laws, I want you to think very hard and critical about that. What I said to him is listen, let's talk about this 18 or younger, right? I said, it's not that I'm disagreeing that there shouldn't be some common sense applied, okay? But it should be up to the parents to understand how that is applied in their household, okay? That's their jurisdiction, okay? Now, do they run the risk that their child could accidentally shoot themselves or someone else or go injure somebody? Yes, they do. That's the part of the dangerous freedom, okay? But should there be a federal law that says that a child can't access that firearm? No, I don't think there should be, period. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous to think that there might be a 15-year-old that gets off the school bus at 3 o'clock and their parents don't get home till 5 o'clock. That leaves a 2-hour window where someone could break in. And if that law was enforced, for them to go get a firearm or protect themselves would get the parents to be charged as felons. That's ridiculous. It's absurd, okay? So to our younger folks, you have already lived in it. You're part of that generation. And so am I, by the way. A lot of folks, there are folks older than me, guys, that are the same way. So a lot of these folks in the North that might be 80 years old that are like, oh, we don't need the Second Amendment. Guys, even they were raised underneath the false pretenses that a lot of the infringements they're trying to push on the Second Amendment make sense. And they're just common sense. And they're better for society. Well, that's not true. That does go back to what, and I forgot his saying, what was the gentleman earlier said that, essentially liberty outweighs or human rights outweigh innocent people. Yeah. Okay. That speaks to that point again too, guys. And then, you have a choice. You can say you don't accept that. That's perfectly fine. That's your right as well. But what you cannot say that America was not founded on that, because America was absolutely founded on the idea of extreme liberty. Okay. Guys, the Bill of Rights and those early bills that happened in those early years were incredibly liberating. They were incredibly broad because you have the right to do what you want as long, and if it infringes on other people and their ability to pursue their rights, that's when all of a sudden, if you've done that action, you are then potentially putting justification to infringe upon your rights. Okay. And that's the only condition that as far as I'm concerned, where rights should potentially be infringed. Okay. I'll throw out there too, this guys, when it comes to felons, do I think that once someone's a felon and let's say they go to jail for 30 years and they get out, they should never be allowed to vote. They should never be allowed to have a firearm. I'm not so sure I completely agree with that. I mean, if their debt to society was to serve 30 years, if that was what was agreed upon by a jury of their peers, then that's the debt. Now, if they happen to additionally decide that for the rest of their life they can't do that, fine. But to say that just because they're a felon and carte blanche across the board, they never get those back, I constitutionally have a problem with that, right? Once you've served your debt to society, you should have certain things restored. Now that debt might be defined by your peers and a jury, and if it gets defined in that case, that's constitutional, right? So again, it's the carte blanche that I don't completely agree with on that particular one. So anyways, guys, listen, we've been going for over an hour. Jason, do you have any thoughts? You're online?
We're good. Good.
So guys, again, we do have Jason in the house. If I just want to throw this out there. So we're having a little fun with this. Jason, we can see you. He's got his own camera now. He's in the house. He's hanging out across the fence. If you're familiar with Wilson from Home Improvement, Jason is our very own Wilson. Okay. So Jason, you got any closing comments before we start wrapping it up?
Not really. I think Sassafras put up a really good comment on nature's laws, on God's laws, natural rights that were given to us by God's laws. Among the natural rights are the first, the right to life, second, to liberty, and third, to property, together with the right to support and defend them in the best of the manner they can. Samuel Adams is a quote from Samuel Adams. Great comment.
Great comment, Sassafras. Guys, I know sometimes I get distracted and I jump over and I kind of go on a tangent sometimes with some of the comments. I see Spencer Frace is also putting some interesting things in here. Guys, I do try to get back and I try to read the comments. I know there was a question earlier from Preacher about reading my emails. I'm not the best about checking them every day, Preacher. I'll go back and I'll try to check that if you're still online. Again, guys, today was an interesting one. I'm seeing all kinds of people that we have from Facebook as well. Chris is still on here. Aaron Kilgore, Amber Barker, Matthew McMurray. We've got a lot of Mike McConnell, several different folks have joined from the Facebook side as well today. So I know halfway through this stream we had some technical difficulties, guys. We're always going to try to improve this channel for you guys. I've said it before. This channel's not ours. This channel's your all's. The moment that this becomes, counterproductive or not useful, guys, I'll shut it down. I have no problem with that. This was just something, a different way for us to get some word out. We're streaming to Facebook as well as YouTube. Again, just trying to expand the outreach to get everybody to be aware of things. Today, we wanted to touch on a couple things. Guys, there's a lot of other bills that are getting passed through. Occasionally, we did a video a while back where we covered, like 6 or 8 very impactful bills as well. We'll do that from time to time. I really want to do a bill on history because I think that's a really impactful one. So maybe the next video we'll talk about the puckle gun or the Giordani air rifle or, some of the other semi-automatic firearms that were around during the creation of the Second Amendment. Okay. Maybe even throw out some good book titles around our founding fathers that you can go out and you can read when it comes to that. So, Jason, I guess we're going to close out prayer. You got anything else you want to say before we pray?
No, sounds good.
All right, guys, we're gonna close out in prayer as we always try to do here. So we'll go to the Lord in prayer. So, dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, I just want to thank you again for this day, God, and thank you for this chance to be here, Lord, and to have these resources, Lord, and to have this opportunity just to come on here and speak, Lord, and God, as I always ask, I hope that everything that was said and done be something that, Lord, would be the words that you would want to be shared, Lord. I do believe firmly that these are the rights that you gave us. Instituted among men, but Lord, they came from your inspiration, God. We know our country was founded on Christian principles, God. We know this. It's challenged, and we know it will continue to be challenged. Lord, we know Revelations, and we know what the end of time spells, Lord, but we can't sit idly by and let these things happen on us, Lord. So, again, Father, I just want to thank you for this chance, Lord. Lord, thank you for all the viewers. God, I don't know if there were prayer requests in the comments today. We always ask folks to put those there too, Lord. But God, for all those hearts that are out there, heavy burden, afflicted, hurting, sick, weak in their faith, Lord, maybe they don't even know who you are, God. Maybe they've not accepted you as their Savior. God, I just ask that you put your hand and your touch on them, keep them safe, put that healing touch on them if they need that healing touch. God, I'm going to ask you that you also, particularly in our admin group, Lord, our one admin, Brother Mike, passed away here about a week ago. Lord, please continue to remember his family, Brother Morgan, in our admin group as well. Lord, please remember him, Lord, and all their family as they continue to deal with their loss. Father, there are some other special requests in my heart for some folks that I know that are having troubles with their faith, Lord. They're losing their faith. They don't know. They question things. God, I ask that you just renew their strength, renew their faith, Lord. God, I'd ask that you just bless everybody that's watching, whatever those hearts and those minds are, whatever those needs are, God, you know those needs. You know our needs before we know them, just like you knew us before we ever took our first breath, God. Father, just ask that you bless whatever it is we're doing here. And Lord, whatever happens, Lord, if it's your will, that's what I ask you to graciously give us the capacity, the strength, and the courage to accept, Lord, because it's your will that we should all want in our lives, whatever that may be. So, Father, we just want to again thank you and ask you to bless us until the next time we come back together. All these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys, we're going to sign off of here. Guys, keep the comments coming. I do try to go back and read through these as best as I can. I try to reply to them as best as I can. But, again, thank you all for being here. We will come on hopefully in the next couple of days. The water's rising a little bit, but I don't think it's going to get out of its banks. Hopefully not. But if y'all have any questions, as always, let me throw this up on here real quickly. If you have any questions, our email is down below. I should have had that going the whole time. I apologize. But you can email us at scottcountyvagunowners@gmail.com. Again, today was broadcast on YouTube and Facebook. If you're not already on Facebook, I encourage you not to join. By all means, don't waste your time. Please don't get on there if you're not on there. But if you are on Facebook, you can find us at Scott County VA Gun Owners. If you join, be sure to answer those questions. It's a good way to outreach us. I will say that the Facebook group certainly stays much more focused just to Scott County. This particular channel, reaching out to YouTube, does get a broader audience. So we hope that those across the Republic also find use of this, as it lets you know what's happening here on the front lines in Virginia, and it lets you know what's going to be moving to your doorsteps. As Brother Justin pointed out earlier, we're seeing this now in Arizona, New Mexico. It's eventually going to get tried at all different levels all across the Republic. So until next time, guys, listen, stay safe, keep fighting the good fight, keep your firearms close, but keep God closer. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.